You know, there are some games that you just wind up waiting for and waiting for and waiting for. And it seems to me that there are a lot of those games that come out of Square Enix. But certainly one of those came out very recently, and it's called Kingdom Hearts 3. And if you're not familiar with that series, Kingdom Hearts is a almost indescribable combination of Square Enix's JRPG bona fides with the Disney film animation and now Pixar animation movie houses. And the combination has resulted in a very, very long-form series that almost expands to 20 years now, with only 3 mainline games. So Kingdom Hearts 3 is the third in that mainline series, but since the first 2 releases, there have been a number of other kind of side stories released on the 3DS and on the Game Boy and on iPad and iOS and things of that nature that have expanded a story to a place where if you're on the internet to any great extent, you've probably already heard that it's very difficult to comprehend the overall storyline of Kingdom Hearts. But while that might be true in the kind of details of the game, it's not true in the overall plot, which is very easy to condense into essentially the power of friends, the power of love, the power of our hearts shall overcome darkness and evil, etc., etc. And it can be kind of broken down in that way to make it sound a little bit light, a little bit kiddie, and to be honest, it is. But that doesn't really take away from some of the fun and some of the good things that Kingdom Hearts does. To give you a little bit of background on myself, I'm a big Disney fan. My family regularly goes to Disney World. We enjoy Disney products, including the Marvel and Star Wars lines, which you won't really see in Kingdom Hearts. But we've always loved Disney, and so when the original Kingdom Hearts was released and showed off these kind of three-dimensional worlds where you got to explore the kind of mostly 90s renaissance of Disney with Aladdin and Little Mermaid and those kinds of movies, it really was a lot of fun. And certainly Kingdom Hearts in and of itself is a remarkable thing to even exist. And so I think it's well worth your time if you're into video games, if you're into Disney, if you're into JRPGs or Square Enix in general, to check it out. So I'm making this video not to say that you shouldn't, although you will hear certain things that I don't really love about the series and I don't really love about Kingdom Hearts 3 in general in this video. This isn't to dissuade you from checking it out. These are my first impressions. These are not impressions after having finished the game. So the game might get wildly better at the end. It might dive off a cliff at the end. I don't know. I do videos that are called postmortems on those things that I have finished, and this is not one of those. At this point in time, I've played probably a dozen or 15 hours of Kingdom Hearts 3. I am through 4 or 5 worlds, which are the separate, essentially, Disney movie-themed locations that you traverse in the role-playing game. And I can say, in all honesty, that Kingdom Hearts 3 does what it says on the tin. It does exactly what you would expect if you are coming at the Kingdom Hearts series having played either Kingdom Hearts 1 or Kingdom Hearts 2 or Birth by Sleep or Dream Drop Distance or any of the other almost strangely named Kingdom Hearts series games. You visit a Disney World. You have an action RPG combat situation with either Heartless or Nobodies or some other enemy in that world. You progress in general through a kind of short-form light version of the movie storyline that is the story of whatever you're related to. So if you're in the Kingdom of Corona, you're going to experience the Rapunzel storyline. If you're in Arendelle, you're going to experience the Frozen storyline, but with the characters from Kingdom Hearts, in this case, Sora, your main character, Donald, and Goofy, kind of experiencing them with you. So in that way, it's kind of a really highly produced, really lavishly designed, licensed game. It's certainly pretty much what you would expect from a Rapunzel game or from a Frozen game. And that's really been the way Kingdom Hearts, for the most part, has always been. There were some certain exceptions, especially with Kingdom Hearts 2, where you had some more in-depth discussions about what the characters in each of the worlds meant in the overall plotline of Kingdom Hearts, which I personally enjoyed a bit more. But Kingdom Hearts 3's primary fault, from my perspective, is essentially that it does licensed video games. And then in between those worlds, it has about 10 minutes of what you might consider inexplicable cutscenes. If you're really paying attention, you can follow along mostly with what they're saying, and they've included some nice kind of helper things, including videos to start the game that you can check on to learn more about the 17 years of history of Kingdom Hearts, or a glossary that you can access from the phone menu that can help you with some of the terminology they use. But outside of that, you really don't have an interaction with the main plot until, my guess would be, the third act, the finale of the video game, where you've completed the Disney worlds, and then the main plot of the video game will take hold and take you to the finish line, would be my guess. But throughout that, until that point, you're essentially visiting with Rapunzel characters, visiting with Hercules characters, visiting with Toy Story characters or Monsters, Inc. characters, and not really progressing the overall plot line that much. And so I think if you go in expecting Kingdom Hearts 3 to be the climactic finale of the Kingdom Hearts storyline, that it's all going to feel like Harry Potter and the Deathly Hallows and everything has come to this, that's really not what the game is selling. From the starting point of the game, it's essentially resetting all of the power levels and saying, hey, you've got these new Disney worlds to explore. Why don't you go explore them? And we're going to keep you up to date as to what's happening with the main storyline, kind of between worlds, as other characters kind of deal with that and you pop into and out of Disney stories. So I do think it's a little bit disappointing there, and I have no real reason to believe that it won't kind of eventually get to a climactic finale of some kind at the end. Certainly the opening video and the prologue is very evocative of some of the kind of white versus black, good versus evil that I said reminded me on my Twitter of Lost. It features a person in white and a person in black playing chess, and essentially superimposing images throughout the series of when one player moves one chess piece to indicate that, like, these are the folks that are really plotting out what has happened in Kingdom Hearts so far in kind of a good versus evil kind of way. And I do enjoy that imagery. I do like that stuff. I always have. But it certainly seems to have gone by the wayside for virtually every minute of play that I have played so far. Again, in essentially the first 15 hours or so. So maybe halfway through the game. So take that with the grain of salt it deserves, except that I make these videos to essentially talk about my experiences and my impressions of having played the video game. And so it is a little bit disappointing to not have more progress, to not have a higher sense of importance of what is happening in and what is supposed to be happening in the Kingdom Hearts plotline here in the finale, here at the end of all things, as Samwise might say. And so with that all being said, to talk about the game, it really does do what it says on the tin. It's 2019. It's been a very long time since the last mainline entry in the series. So one of the things that it absolutely does do is it progresses the graphics and the sound and the gameplay up a couple of notches, absolutely. Visiting Olympus for Hercules, or visiting Andy's room and the game toy box for Toy Story is fantastic. It's a lot of fun. There's a lot of details that are built into the game that are really, really enjoyable to see. You're in Rapunzel, and Flynn Rider rolls around on a barrel while Rapunzel tries to swing her hair around to get enemies. And these are combat techniques, and these are kind of character distinct traits that you didn't necessarily see as much in the earlier Kingdom Hearts games, or at all in some of the earlier Kingdom Hearts games. And so if you're a fan of Disney, and if you're a fan in particular of Pixar and kind of modern rendered Disney animation, you're going to really enjoy this stuff. The stuff from the original Kingdom Hearts from 17 years ago and from Kingdom Hearts 2, which is really mostly the Disney Renaissance of the 90s, is mostly gone by the wayside. There are a couple references here and there, but you're not going to be hanging out with Aladdin and The Little Mermaid and things of that nature anymore. It's really progressed to the Toy Story era and the Monsters, Inc. era and Pixar in general, as well as kind of the rendered Disney environments, although not Wreck-It Ralph, which is interesting. But if you do enjoy those kinds of movies and you do enjoy seeing those kinds of details, it is fun to see those worlds. They are pretty much standard, slightly bigger versions of the original Kingdom Hearts type worlds. They have fewer load screens in between them, so that's a lot of fun. And certainly the combat is kind of as responsive as it ever has been. Certainly one of the interesting things that has happened in Kingdom Hearts 3 is they've essentially loaded Sora and company with almost every offensive option that any character has had throughout the Kingdom Hearts series, which has a tendency to make them overpowered, not moment to moment necessarily, where you're just kind of whacking on enemies with your Keyblade, But because you have so many options at any given time, whether you're shot locking people or whether you're calling in giant lit up Disney rides to hit them, which are very, very cool, but they also get you off the map. You can't get hurt. You can only hurt your enemy. And they come so often that it's really very difficult to die in the same way that it was in the original Kingdom Hearts and maybe Kingdom Hearts 2 and some of the other games in the series. And so it comes across as an interesting plot element when the entire start of the game is about Sora being underpowered and having to go get his power back in order to defeat the evil that is coming for him. And you essentially start out the game pretty much as feeling tremendously more powerful than you have in any other Kingdom Hearts game, and it really makes the combat, for the most part, a fait accompli, which I do think takes away from these games. And it would certainly be a longer video and a longer essay-type discussion about whether Kingdom Hearts 3 and Ni no Kuni and some of the other games that we're seeing, especially out of Japan, really indicate a desire for most folks to proceed through a story, but not necessarily get challenged that much in proceeding through that story. And that's even on the hardest difficulty setting in Kingdom Hearts. So it's not really a matter of difficulty setting as much as it's just a matter of you have so many options at your disposal that you really can get away with a lot, and you can get away from a lot of enemies just by hitting attraction buttons and hitting other kind of protective techniques as you play. And so I think what you've got is you've got a very pretty game. You've got a game with a lot of cool sound effects, a lot of cool music. It's certainly kind of overwhelming in terms of visuals. It's got a lot of fireworks, a lot of Disney feel to it. It's very colorful, but it's ultimately not terribly fulfilling to beat all these enemies. You're beating them very quickly. You're beating them usually without a lot of trouble. And so when you have that kind of situation where you're in a scenario where I'm reminded of what the BioWare directors used to talk about Dragon Age 2 when they said press A for awesome, and they just wanted people to feel really good and powerful about hitting the button and accomplishing things in the world. You have that kind of same situation with Kingdom Hearts 3 where, yeah, if you hit the top button, if you hit Y, I'm playing it on the Xbox One X, if you hit that button, yeah, cool things are going to happen, and they are very cool. But it doesn't take a lot of effort on your part, and so you wind up kind of mindlessly proceeding through some of the enemies, through some of the environments, and through some of the areas in a way that I don't find as fulfilling as some of the other video games that I play. And it's interesting that RPGs in general seem to be kind of bifurcating into Ni no Kuni and Kingdom Hearts and some of the easier role-playing games on the one hand, or you can play Dark Souls and Bloodborne and presumably Sekiro when it comes out later this year, where you've got this high level of difficulty, rather than a kind of, I want something lightly challenging, but that does push back on me, but ultimately allows me to prevail. That doesn't seem to be in the offing for a lot of the games, at least that I have personally played of late. And certainly if you've heard of any that you've had a different experience with, where you have had that kind of challenging pushback, but you've ultimately been able to prevail, where it's not just kind of ridiculous or memorizing or learning in kind of the Dark Souls series, please do let me know, because that is certainly what I like. And what I ultimately found last year was that Dragon Quest XI was having this same kind of problem and wasn't pushing back enough. And so I went back and restarted that game and put on some of these draconian modifiers to make enemies harder and to make them give out less experience. And that really improved my assessment of the game and really improved my enjoyment level of the game. And I wish I would have done that sooner. And it's interesting to me that developers aren't kind of self-picking a challenging level on their own, especially when you're talking about something like Dragon Quest, unlike Kingdom Hearts 3, where you've got a turn-based model that is easier to balance in terms of figuring out what people's relative power strengths are, how things are going to react when you hit attack and things, rather than trying to figure out whether somebody will be able to dodge this blow with Sora and how they will react to kind of action environment. So it's not a situation that I think is easy to answer, and it's not one that I have easy answers for, and certainly I'm not a game designer, I'm just a lawyer. But I do find it interesting that games like Kingdom Hearts 3 and other games that I have played have really erred on the side of being easy, because I do think that winds up taking away some of the joy that I experience in playing these video games, and Kingdom Hearts 3 has had that problem. Now, on the other side of the coin, it does have those experiences. You do get to participate in a Toy Story story that hasn't existed before. You do get to visit the Rapunzel world and the Frozen world and things of that nature, and there is a lot of fun there, and there's clearly been a lot of money and a lot of time and a lot of effort spent on bringing those worlds to life. And I don't want to belittle that because I have enjoyed it, and especially with my kids. I have a number of young kids now that really love that experience, that sit down there with me and play Kingdom Hearts, and we have had a great time. So I do think there is a lot of fun there. I do think it's worth buying, especially if you're one of those people that I've mentioned that loves Disney or has kids or just wants to see this series through to its conclusion. But I do think some of what you're seeing in the media has been a little light on some of the problems that really do exist in the game. And I did want to talk about them a little bit. So those are my first impressions of Kingdom Hearts 3. I think it's a very well-made game that errs a lot on the side of being too easy and also errs on the side of essentially repeating or rehashing existing Disney storylines in a fashion that can make you feel like you're wasting your time. And so I'm very hopeful that by the time we get to the end of this game, it's going to be a fantastic climax to the series. I think it'll probably be pretty satisfying and pretty fulfilling, but that won't really change, the 20 or 25 hours spent just kind of rehashing the Rapunzel storyline or rehashing the Frozen storyline, but slightly worse from the movies that you probably know and love if you are the type of Disney fan that would like Kingdom Hearts 3. So those are my first impressions. If you like this video, please do like it. On this channel, I talk about a lot of these things, video games, very often, not always in impression style. I'm not usually giving my thoughts necessarily on the products in question, but I am talking a lot in my Virtual Legality series about the law and business of video games, of information technology, of software, and other kinds of legal issues that catch my eye as I'm looking at the internet and the articles of the day. So please do follow this channel. Follow me on Twitter at Hoeglaw, Hoeglaw. And otherwise, thank you so very much for watching.